mean, listen, let's just talk from a protocol standpoint as far as how many people are using different modalities now in our industry. There's so many different things out there with kettlebells and barbells and dumbbells. And now you came up with the Viper, which is a really, really cool and intriguing product. I got to use it for the first time a couple of years ago at our summit down in Nashville. And it was definitely not what I thought it was, which was great, you know, because I really, when you see something online, you don't really know what it is. I'm like, is that just a tube? Like, what is that thing? And then I use it. I was like, holy moly, this is much different than I thought. So why don't you kind of take us through, how did you come up with that? Basically, you know, again, there's so many different training modalities out there, but how did you come up with this particular product? Knowing we're going to talk a little more in depth of what it does, but how did you come up with it? And what you know, what made you think about it?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm smiling because, you know, Bill tells the story. He tells my story better than I tell my story now.
Got it. Yeah.
Which is awesome, right?
He's great at that.
Yeah, but it's phenomenal because I heard him. I think he was on the Cressy's podcast, and he was talking about the story. And I was listening to that clip, and I leaned back and I chuckled, and I thought, he's telling it better than I am. But the story is that, you know, some time ago, a gentleman named Simon Bennett and myself. Simon Bennett is in the performance realm. He was the S&C and the director of high performance for one of the NHL hockey teams, the Edmonton Oilers. And he's still affiliated with them in that capacity, but he's basically broadened even beyond that right now. But he and I were looking at training hockey players, either that were at the professional level or getting to the professional level. And as we were doing, it's usually about 16 weeks of an off-season program, right? So 16 weeks, you've got to get them anatomically adaptable, right? So you go through that anatomical adaptation phase, you go strength, power, and then SAQ, and then they're back into the season or they're back into the next level of hockey. And so, you know, in that 16-week off-season protocol, we would look at trying to create, you know, a more robust anatomy, and then trying to amplify this idea of force production, strength, and then the expression of force production, power, and then different ways to express that power through SAQ. And so what was interesting back in the day is that we would do all that, follow that periodization model. And when our athletes got back to sport with the coaches and the scouts, we would always ask, you know, how are players doing? Yeah, they're doing good. What can they improve on? And, you know, almost universally, Steve, the answer was strength on the puck. Now, for those that are not in the northern climates and don't understand the game of hockey quite that well, strength on the puck means, you know, obviously there's collision and battling situations in hockey. And when you have the puck and I'm the opposing player, I've got to either try to nudge you off the puck or try to battle for position of the puck. And that jostling, that battling scenario was never to the advantage of those that we trained. And so strength on the puck became this kind of moniker that we had to address in order for us to be, you know, more successful. So we would rejig our strength timing, right? Maybe allow for a little bit more than a 4-week to 5-week to 6-week protocol on strength development. And so as we expanded the strength, the hope was that they would be able to produce more force. And so the very next year, same answer, right? They'd strengthen the puck. And so it took us a while, but we asked a critical question, which was, well, who's beating us to the puck? Farm kids, right? And so the idea and the inception of Viper and then the new design of Viper Pro is really, what are they doing on the farm, right? And that's what Bill always said is the omnidirectional submaximal loading. And when we look at the characteristics of adaptation through our development over thousands of years, that's what it did. Like skin, joint strength, muscle, even nervous system engrams, right? So efferent motor outcomes, which is coordination, fascial remodeling and development are all to a certain degree on the backs of this idea of, can I actually introduce load in a variety of different ways? Because as soon as I go through repetitive loads, if the volume is high enough, it's repetitive stress. And repetitive stress increases the risk of repetitive injury or repetitive stress injury. And so, you know, there is this kind of dance that we need to make between enough variability to be bulletproof and enough specificity to have a transferability into whatever environment or into skill or whatever we want to have as an outcome. So that dance needs to occur. And what we might say is, you know, you can grab a product that is a mass-driven product, but often what I'll say is, you know, if this seems a little bit too like Michol's got his own ulterior motive, grab a tree branch, right? Load it and move around with it. And the body will use that mass as an input signal. And what it does is it starts to create adaptations that we hope to gain by virtue of not just the product, but the philosophy behind the product, which is, can you take a bale of hay into the gym without all the mess, right? Without straw everywhere. And if that's the way that we can do it, can that style of loading complement what we've done in the linear patterns extremely well? Because we're still huge fans of linear patterns, right? Where, you know, load is high and degrees of freedom are lower. We need that. But we also need this, you know, the introduction of other aspects of load as well. And so that was really the thought process behind, you know, can we take the wisdoms that are on the farm? Can we take, you know, what farm kids have done, not even just this generation farm kids, because they sit a lot in tractors, but let's say 2 generations ago, what they did on the farm in rural environments to make it through the day, and take those wisdoms and apply it to current training philosophies.